always sort of wanted to do a sequel to Jurassic Park because I thought that both by popular demand and also because I just had such a great time making the first film.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
I just had to hear that again. The idea of being inside a prehistoric world that exists somewhere in this world today, that really compelled me. And I thought, wow, what a great story.
A few weeks ago, a British family on a yacht cruise stumbled across the island.
There's an island where there are dinosaurs, a bunch of dinosaurs, no electric fences, running around, no people there. They own the island, it's the lost world.
And now it's only a matter of time before this lost world is found and pillaged. Old temptations and the old adrenaline comes up again. I'm not making the same mistakes again.
No, you're making all new ones.
And he takes risks again.
Hopefully we've kept this island quarantined and contained, but I'm in shock about all this. He says he's going to send some people on land, a few people, to sort of document them.
Wow.
Isn't it great?
Ooh, that's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming.
It was really sitting down with Michael Crichton, and Michael wrote, the story in his book, and then David Koepp came in and did a wonderful screenplay, and The Lost World is going to be a pretty good story.
We won't stay anywhere near these islands.
Se llaman las Cinco Muertes.
They call the islands Las Cinco Muertes.
What does that mean?
The 5 deaths.
Steven's got such a wonderful, fertile mind, especially for these sorts of adventure sequences.
They're so big that they're close to you even when they're 20 feet away, because they've got so much girth and dimension that even when they're 20 feet away, they're going to look like they're all around you.
Okay.
And they've all got their tails, kind of like scorpions, and they're all making swipes with their tails.
In the first movie, we got over this mountain of disbelief that the audience had to suspend, which was how did they bring dinosaurs back? So it gives us a little more time to concentrate on some of the characters.
My character in this movie, instead of a kind of sound fellow like I was in the first one, who comes along for the ride with some fun, in him, I have fun in me and a sense of humor.
I'll be back in 5 or 6 days.
No, you'll be back in 5 or 6 pieces. But I'm driven in a very passionate way.
They don't move! Don't move!
He's the only one who's been through this experience before.
I beg people to listen to me. I use plain, simple English. I don't have any accent that I'm wearing.
Oh, shut up.
And against his will, he's dragged back into this situation to save someone's life.
She's there to join a team of people who are there to study the dinosaurs. And the reason he goes down is to retrieve her.
Why didn't you say something to me?
Because I knew you would have stopped me from coming.
God, no.
Stay there.
Sarah! Sarah!
Sarah! Shoot him!
She's just protecting your baby.
So am I!
I play Kelly Malcolm. Ian Malcolm, she's his daughter.
I'm your daughter all the time, You can't just abandon me whenever opportunity knocks.
Gee, that hurts my feelings. Did your mom tell you to say that?
And she stows away on the trailers without him knowing.
Who started a fire?
I just wanted to make dinner.
She needs to get my attention and to obviously come here and be with me.
Other animals are gonna hear this.
Can you hear me?
Dad, I gotta get out of here, please. I wanna get out of here. I wanna go
Calling the
someplace
boat.
safe. No,
Calling the boat,
I
honey.
wanna go someplace else.
Well, we go through something very heavy and intense together, and that bond us in a very important and primal way.
Please, Dad, stay here.
Honey, the Queen, the goddess.
Your inspiration?
You have a bunch of different characters with strong objectives thrown into a very serious situation.
The operation has suffered severe casualties, and the survivors are now in mortal danger. I need you to send rescue immediately.
You put together one group of hunters and another group of dinosaur advocates. So these two groups come together. It's more than just running from dinosaurs. There's a lot of human drama in this one.
And cut.
His objective is simply to go on one final expedition against one of the greatest predators that ever lived.
Let's get this movable feast underway.
Action!
They're pushing us over the cliff.
Oh, my God.
Hang on to something!
Physically, it was a hard playground. We just did everything. Me and Vince Vaughn and Julianne Moore are trapped in a horrible situation and just fighting for our lives.
So you guys would start by looking up, Then you would look off to the left, right, like quickly, because this whole thing is moving. And the reason you're looking all over is you don't want to get hit by the side.
Okay, now guys, looking up. Here comes the trailer. Oh my God, and duck your heads from the trailer. Look back down. Slowly look up. Okay, now it goes to the ground. Everybody look down to the ground. Explosion.
It is truly the most physically demanding film I've ever done.
Oh, God, please.
I didn't think when I first saw the script that it would be this challenging physically, and it's been fun.
We're hitting you with a lot of air from an air tube.
You know, you show up and you think, well, today I'm in a harness, or today I'm really muddy, or today I'm in a waterfall, or whatever, and you do it.
And cut. Very nice. Good take, everybody.
On this movie, we had so many sets. I mean, it was about 100. And so we had a tremendous amount of changeovers where we had our 8 sound stages in our back lot plus our distant locations. When you go on location, you have to react to what's there. And I enjoy that a lot because that actually helps to dictate the way the movie's going to be, and it's you being in touch with something that's bigger than you.
What the hell is that?
Go as fast as you can.
I don't think the screenwriter should ever be trying to write to existing technology. You write what you think tells your story in the best or most exciting way, and leave it up to them to figure it out.
A movie like this needs at least a year to 18 months of prep time. It takes 18 months to build the animals. And to prepare a production of this size, you began sketching and designing some of the sequences about 2 years ago.
What is that?
When people ask me, you know, what's a dinosaur really look like? I tell them to go see the movie. I don't tell them to go to my museum. We're a scientist. We give the information to the artist. The artist puts it together and makes it actually more sensible.
We're solving
That's right.
a 100-million-year-old mystery.
He's got a broken leg. Let's get in the car before
Are
they
you
hear us.
out of your mind? Do you have any idea what that is?
Come on, open the door. Come on, baby.
You're nuts.
We're trying to create a story visually that kind of feels realistic, not like the amusement park as in the first one, but more like The Lost World.
You recognize this trackway?
Yes, I do. Tyrannosaur.
We certainly wanted to raise the stakes, you know, where Stan Winston was concerned, because he had a chance to make dinosaurs that were even more lifelike, and he really did that.
The bird theory that if there, you know, how we have breathers and everything,
Yeah.
it would be neat if we could have these guys going.
Oh, really fast?
You know,
Like breathing fast?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Wizard.
There are different dinosaurs in this, and the dinosaurs they have in this, I think, will be even a little more sophisticated. I think it'll be something you have to see.
The dinosaurs have been fantastic. Stan has done an extraordinary job. I had a scene with a baby stegosaurus. She had a whole personality. She had a whole life. You didn't have to do anything, just to play the scene with her.
It's important in these movies that the animals never be characterized as villains, because they're not. They're just there doing what they do.
Like it's not scared.
It's when the humans come in conflict with one another through greed or hate that they find themselves sort of at the mercy of the animals.
When you're that close to them and you see how massive they are in scope, they come to life when they start to move.
Maybe there's a DNA memory clone, kind of a, what would you call it, kind of a psychic DNA.
That'd be great.
And maybe it recognizes you.
It's all a leap of the imagination anyway. When you work with them, you have to keep pinching yourself to say, actually, that's not a real creature.
The whole collaboration, Michael Lantieri is the guy involved with special effects on the set, so they're knocking over gas pumps and breaking windows and things and knocking over cars.
To a certain extent, we're creating what's going to happen later.
It's nice to do the mechanical stuff on the set as much as you can because the actors can work with it. And we kind of know where that shift takes place, where you can't get away with that anymore and you need something else.
One of the things we did here at ILM before the plate photography was done was I did a little animatic where we just set up ponds of a herd of paras, herd of galleys, and a motorcycle, and just set up different paths and how the motorcycle could be chasing these things through the legs of this brontosaur. And when it came down to plate photography, Dennis sort of had a vision of what that could look like before they shot the film.
What we're doing now is setting up the shot
getting the actors to imagine what's actually there, even though it's not going to be there. They have to know where to look, and then, getting the scene to look like they're in the new Jurassic Park: The Lost World.
The process starts with shooting the live-action backgrounds on set and taking precise measurements.
We'll then reconstruct from scratch what that animal looks like. And then once the model is made, the animator will then be able to animate the character, one frame at a time.
A lot of actors say when they get the walk down, then they understand the character. Well, it's similar to what we do here because animators are essentially performers.
Just when you have that one come in, maybe just one other one too. Would be nice.
Looks a little bit empty.
But just the way they're gathering and everything, is the way they're coming, almost like land piranha.
I'm afraid there isn't enough to go around.
And then once the animator is done with it, the shot will go to the technical director. It's to sort of make it look real. They'll apply a skin to it, and they'll combine it with the background.
Film like this is basically in the spirit of exploration. It's like a laboratory. There's so many things that are involved in getting a shot that is definitely a group effort. But hopefully the final result looks like the single mind of the animal on the screen.
After it's all said and done, we have hopefully got a living, breathing creature looking as though it was really on the set, responding to Steven's direction.
It's not the same movie. The new CGI and the improved artistry will make the dinosaurs look even more believable.
It seemed like an opportunity to do something that was the next step beyond the first show.
Hang on.
It's a good adventure. It's a lot of fun.
So the chances are that if you were bowled over by Jurassic Park 1, what you're going to see in Lost World will just take your breath away.
I think it's more terrifying because these characters are well developed, and these characters have points of views and opinions.
We came here to watch. You came to strip mine the place. Back off.
At least we came prepared.
And so I think you become invested in these characters.
Taking dinosaurs off this island is the worst idea in the history of bad ideas. I think it'll be frightening and thrilling and fun.
Oh, that's good. Okay, let's shoot. If anybody was looking at this and didn't know we were about to shoot a scene, they would find this to be a pleasant form of masochism. I really think of the audience when I think of a Jurassic Park or a Lost World. And yeah, a lot of this movie was made for what I hope would be a pleasure and an adventure for the audience.
My God, people are going to jump right out of their seats because I know that I would. What is it?
Mommy's very angry.
Okay, we got it. Fabulous. Hey, we got it.
What happened was I had done a screenplay about a young graduate student who genetically engineered a single dinosaur from fossil remains, and the screenplay didn't work. It was too fantastic a event to be kept secret, which is what happened in that story. And I couldn't really, the big problem always with these creatures is once you have them, then what do you do with them? What is the story after they exist? And it wasn't very satisfactory in that way, and I gave it up. The other thing was at that time that I really had trouble believing that this might ever happen. Of course it's a fantasy, but I had trouble for myself believing that it might be true. And in the next few years, there was more and more research that suggested that it wasn't so unlikely. And I began to take it in that way more seriously.
Animals that went extinct millions of years ago, like dinosaurs, left their blueprints behind for us to find. We just had to know where to look.
The other thing that happened was I began to feel that if I was going to do this story, I'd better do it soon. I was then in my middle 40s, and it was starting to seem like a kind of inherently juvenile fantasy story, no matter how you cut it, which I think it still has those aspects which are very pleasant. So I finally sat down and really tried to do it and do it as a book. The solution, which at the time I had found very unsatisfactory, was to make it a theme park. And the reason why the dinosaurs were set in a theme park was just a sort of logical problem. Although I by then believed that it was possible to genetically engineer these creatures so that eventually it would be possible, I couldn't see who would pay for it. You know, who's gonna, because it's not a cure for cancer, you know, I mean, it's very entertaining. And the only thing I could think of was that it would be some form of entertainment. In terms of the actual writing, it occurred around the time my daughter was born, and then I bought a lot of stuffed toys. And they were all dinosaurs because that was kind of what was available at that time. And my wife didn't like it. She had a color scheme for the nursery, and I was disrupting it. And there were all these large, brightly colored animals. And so we had a kind of agreement that I wouldn't buy anymore, but then I bought some more. And it was clearly obsessional. And I had to begin to wonder at some point what it was about dinosaurs that fascinated me so much, or why I thought that they were so tied to childhood. And some of those concerns found their way into the book. Of course the characters have some relationship to me.
So you two dig up dinosaurs?
Stendhal said that fiction is disguised autobiography, or something to that effect, and I think it is. But in general, I prefer to take what is already true, if I can. I don't know how you would get the reality without taking the reality. So in Jurassic Park, I think it's true that all the characters are based, even loosely, on real people.
And even the word raptor means bird of prey.
That doesn't look very scary.
The most obvious one and the best known is Alan Grant, who is Jack Horner, who was an advisor on the film eventually.
Why would they care what we think?
What kind of park is this? It's right up your alley.
Hammond, I suppose, is the least based on anybody, and certainly he has that quality in the novel anyway, which is a certain unscrupulousness. And he was, in my conception, a much darker character than what Steven finally made. I really wanted to do the dark side of Walt Disney. And Steven is, I guess, more forgiving. It seems to me that we live in a society in which technology is continuously presented as wonderful.
It's cool to compartmentalize inside.
We are less exposed to the negative aspects of technology, which are inevitably there.
I hate computers.
Feelings mutual.
One of my interests is to provide that kind of balance to these notions that cell phones and faxes, it's all wonderful, it's great. Isn't it fabulous that we all have computers? And, well, yes and no is my response.
God damn it! I hate this hacker crap!
I was particularly interested in that in working on Jurassic Park, that aspect of what are the negative parts. Because in talking with the people who are doing this kind of research, what I was hearing was that the most responsible of them were deciding not to proceed down certain lines of inquiry, which is really a new phase in science. I mean, traditionally in science, what the scientists themselves have said is, I might as well do it because if I don't, someone else will. It is going to happen inevitably. And I think there's a recognition that it's not so inevitable, and that it's quite conceivable that if I don't do this research, neither will anyone else. It's simply too dangerous.
Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
Ordinarily, my working method is to do years of research. In the first book, it was probably about 10 years from start to finish, of which maybe 3 years were really writing and the other period of time was accumulating. And I, of course, wasn't only doing that during that time. But I allow myself a very long gestation period in that sense. I actually thought it would be possible to do a good movie, but I thought it would be dauntingly expensive. And I couldn't have any confidence in the late 1980s when I was doing this, that I couldn't have any confidence that anyone would decide that dinosaurs were sufficiently interesting to spend a lot of money on them. Turned out someone did.
We've been in pre-production for 50 million years on this movie, Jurassic Park, by golly.
I think Steven was the first person I met in the movie business. It was a very odd thing. It was in 1970, and Universal had bought the Andromeda strain, but they hadn't begun production. And I was at the Salk Institute in La Jolla, and one day I just drove up to Universal and met the production person who was supervising the project. And she said, "Would you like to see the studio?" I'd never seen a movie studio. I had no real idea. And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, we have this really talented young man that we think is very wonderful named Steven Spielberg." And they had him come, and he took me around the studio and showed me what it was. And he was about to do a Night Gallery episode with Joan Crawford. That was going to be his first studio work. So, the first person I ever met.
Cut, print, great take.
What I remember is that I had had a discussion with Steven, and he said he didn't want to do a sequel, and I said that was fine with me. And then at a certain point, all those ideas changed. Then it became clear that there was going to be a sequel. And at that point, I said to Steven, "Well, you know, I'll do a book and you'll do whatever you want in the movie." It had that sort of loose quality to me. The second one was shorter to finish because for me, I never conceived of it as a project that began without antecedents. It obviously had antecedents, and it was the only project that I've ever worked on where I knew there would be a movie. There would be a movie.
Welcome to Jurassic Park. I just had to hear that again.
I was actually interested to write a sequel because I'd never done it. And I was, I think as Steven was, very propelled by the enthusiasm of kids.
Yeah.
And also, at least for me, teachers who were saying, how about a sequel because, you know, the kids will pay attention to this and we can use it to, they were using the first book to teach all kinds of subjects. And I actually thought that was an interesting aspect and had some correspondence with various teachers groups to say, this is probably going to happen, what subjects would you like covered? But that didn't turn out to be very helpful because in the end I turned to a pretty complex set of problems in chaos theory that had to do with extinction, which I think is well beyond high school students, but that's the way it is.
And now it's only a matter of time before this lost world is found and pillaged.
You know, I think my way of looking at movies that are based on books that I've done is in part the experience of having that happen many different times, and in part the experience of having done it with other people. You know, when I was directing other people's books, I was not enthusiastic about the author visiting the set, and I didn't really want to hear what the author had to say about the changes that I was making. And so I'm sensitive to that, you know, when I'm at the other end of the stick. I think that also there's a practical aspect, which is that they really are different media. And what my wish always is that it be a good movie in its own terms, and that it be a good example of the director's work. I think that's all that you can look for. And to wish for some sort of slavish fidelity to the book, I think, is unwise. I've felt some of the movies were too faithful to the book, and I wish they had departed more. And in other cases, I'd wish they hadn't departed so much.
Before they have to react to the wrecks coming out, not to each other.
But in any case, I think it's important that the director make his movie and not make my book. And I think that's really important. I don't actually have a lot of sympathy with the authors who say, you know, they took the book and changed it. I mean, it's a very different form. And it follows different rules, it has a different kind of timing, and it's just inevitably, it's got to change. So what you hope for is a good movie. I was known as the author of The Andromeda Strain, which was something I did in my 20s. And nothing else ever had that degree of public attention. It seemed like, and the years were going by, and I was getting tired of being the author of The Andromeda Strain. I was getting old, and it was starting to be a tag that was going to follow me, you know, like some kind of increasingly tired old animal, you know, hooked on my foot. So it was a great relief to be known as the author of Jurassic Park instead. All the time that I was working on the book, at least, I was really trying to understand what the fascination is. And I went through all the usual theories, you know, that they're interesting because they're so huge, That they're interesting because they have complicated names, that they're interesting because they're gigantic, menacing things like parents, you know, which are very large from the standpoint of a child, that there's some kind of Freudian association.
Gallimimus.
For the child to learn the name, these complicated names, as a way to control something, they're fascinating because they're extinct. I ran through everything that I could think of, and I decided that nobody knows.
This park was not built to cater only for the super rich. Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these animals.
You know, one day I was in a museum and there was a little kid who couldn't have been more than 2 or 2.5, watching a slideshow. It was the kind of child who probably wasn't even in preschool yet. So, you know, there isn't a kind of kid culture that's taking it over. I don't know where it's coming from. And the slides would be up there, and the kid would scream, Tyrannosaurus, Stegosaurus, you know, and all for an hour. And I just sat there thinking, what is it? I don't think anybody knows. Dong Zimeng, who is the head of the Institute of Paleontology in Beijing and is the person who has identified more dinosaurs than any other person in history. He's identified 32, and there's only 700 odd that are known, named a dinosaur for me, or I don't know how you say it, for me, after me. It's called Bienosaurus crichtoni, and it's interesting because it's actually named for 2 living people, which is unusual. It's named for Dr. Bien, who was the person who actually found the material in 1938, and it was brought back to Beijing, but then never examined because of the intervening war and all the events subsequent to that. And then the species name is my name, and he said he did it because my writing is so popular in China and because it's had such an effect on the field, he thinks. So I've had most of my life as an academic person. Even the time that I spent working in films is still, I tend to be the sort of, you know, the one who doesn't want so many explosions, I guess. And so for me, I mean, to have a dinosaur named after you is just, that's really wonderful.